It's time to talk about Adolescence. This is a show that has appeared on Netflix. Now, I've actually talked about this in another review that I've done called The Electric State. A lot of people have just hated this movie, The Electric State, but I liked it. And they always say like, hey, on Netflix, don't watch The Electric State, watch this show, Adolescence, instead. And I can see why they're saying that. But honestly, I say watch both, because they're both pretty good. Now, is Adolescence better? Yeah, probably. Okay, fine. I actually think it's a show that is really cool, and you might really just get into this. Now, as far as I know, there's like 4 episodes that have appeared so far. I have no idea if there's going to be more, because I only watched the first 2. That seems to be a thing that I was doing this weekend, watching 2 episodes of a series that might be in its completion. But basically, the setup is very simple. There's a 13-year-old that's arrested because of murder charges, and this happens on the first episode. You actually see these officers come in to this place and just break down the door and basically arrest this kid and go through the house and pretty much wreck everything, because that's what you do when you do busts like this. This is a show that doesn't hold back, because it is very police procedural, I think is probably the best term. I don't really think do we have police we still have police procedurals type shows here, but I really felt like this one was this one is real emphasis on procedural, and I'm going to have to really explain this. I don't even know how to describe this show, but it's almost like it's done in a single take. And maybe I was, because I was doing like a lot of these shows I watch, I'm doing other work while I'm kind of watching it in the background. I don't think there was a single take in this thing. Like, it's not like, okay, we do the scene, and then the screen goes black, and we go to this scene, and the screen goes back, and we go to this scene. This show managed to keep the action very consistent. So if you were, say, someone like a ghost with a camera and started filming this stuff, you would be getting the storyline that you're getting, and it would be done very consistently. I'm not sure how to describe it other than that. For example, like in the scene where they bust the kid, they get the kid in the car, and you see them actually going along the road with it, and they're telling him things like, hey, when you get there, say that you want I can't remember the word they were using, but they used a British term for lawyer, because this show takes place in Britain. I've seen another film that has tried to do this. The film was called Birdman. Yeah, I think it actually won the Oscar. And essentially, this is the motif they tried, where they were like, where a character would be doing something, and they'd have a conversation, and then the camera would go down the hall and maybe would follow one of these characters, and then they would do a conversation here, and then that would just go along to the next conversation over here, and they would keep doing this, and the camera would be constantly following this person. And the way they do this thing, they need special effects to make these type of cuts. So it's a very smooth cut all the way. And there's some guy in an editing room that has to do this, that has to figure out, I got to make this cut perfect so it looks like it's all one continuous take. And I have to admit, for Adolescence, it really works. And the best of all is because in the film Birdman, there was one scene in which they actually had to have time pass. So I think what they did is they just kind of had to do a little cheat. They just cut to like the outside of the setting, and they just kind of showed time passing in fast motion, and that was that. Nothing like that is used in Adolescence. The camera is always in motion and always focusing on what it needs to focus on. And it'll go, so you're seeing like lots of scenes that take place that are all related to this case. Now, what you don't necessarily see are things that maybe aren't related to this case, because now here's the thing. I think I'm just going to spoil this right from the get-go. Usually I go to the 9-minute mark. That's kind of what I'm famous for, but in this case, I'm going to spoil it at the 5-minute mark. Apparently, and I'm only on the first episode of the show, they have footage of this guy actually committing the crime. So unless there's going to be some twist, and that because that this kid didn't ever do it in the first place, or that maybe some other kid who looks like him did it, and the footage that they caught was just, circumstantial. Apparently this kid is guilty as sin. And now the police are really tracking down why he would do this, who he was involved with, who else knew about this happening. And one of the things, even in the second episode, they're wondering, where's the murder weapon? Because they obviously need that to pin the crime on him. It would be weird if there was some episode that's sort of where he didn't do it, but hey. Now this is a Netflix series, so I'm assuming that all 4 episodes we see are all there are, but I could be wrong, and maybe there is another season planned for this. This is a show that I noticed at one of the executive producers is Brad Pitt, and I'm assuming that's the one and only Brad Pitt. And honestly, this is a good decision for him to executive produce. This is a show that I think is not really like any other, that I really want to see more of, but at the same time, I want it to wrap up its story. I feel like the conceit of this show is what is really selling it, because I think without that, I think this would just be your regular standard ordinary police procedural show. And I personally think we are at a stage right now where we are not really certain how to show policemen in film due to the bad reputation that they've had over the past few years. So it's kind of interesting to see a show that shows them as human, like Long Bright River, which I've also done a rant on. But in this case, the fact that they have these almost impossible shots. In the second episode, which takes place in this kid's high school, is essentially the detectives going there and just trying to figure out, what's going on, and they're interviewing students, and there's a chase scene that takes place where they really, he really chases them down. They actually go out of the school and into the neighborhood, and the main character actually catches this guy, and they really go out of their way to do this. And then they go even more out of their way. At the end of this episode, after the day is done and the school day, there's some sort of, drone shot. I'm not really sure how they did this, but the camera just lifts off the ground. And then it goes all the way to this one area where this is the spot where the body was found, and a lot of people have left flowers. And they show the father of this, the boy who's been incarcerated for murder, laying flowers on this girl's grave. And the camera actually goes through the air like maybe 200 feet from the ground, and then actually goes into the shot to make this close-up. And I'm kind of going, how did they get that shot? How in the world did they do that shot? I was absolutely going this is television too. This isn't a movie. And the best part of all is this isn't necessarily one of those movies that involves a lot of special effects or anything like that. This isn't like a Michael Bay movie where there's drone shots flying around and stuff like that. This is a very smooth integration of this kind of technology. And I'm glad we have this. But I think the way that Adolescence is telling its story is going to be indicative of how we're going to be seeing stories in a lot of movies and TV told from this very objective lens, and like you're a ghost, like you're actually there, seeing it all happen in front of you. There's a lot of emphasis on the, like I said, this is police procedural. I think what it's trying to show you is that the system works, and yet it kind of doesn't work. You're seeing certain cases of this kid being booked, and you can tell they're trying to say things like when they go and bust in the kid's house and they're looking there for evidence, they show a scene where the policemen are saying, if you think we've overstepped our boundary, you can complain at a certain time, and you'll be compensated for this if we have overstepped our boundaries. And I kind of think okay, that's really interesting. They kind of have that. They sort of address these issues that they're bringing up. Because police work is messy business. You have to go in and defeat people who don't play by the rules. And so when it came to this kid and they have to arrest him, and at first you think oh yeah, dude, this poor kid, you have pity for him. And now I'm kind of it shifts at the end of the first episode, and it's now how am I supposed to feel? I don't know. Although I am going to have to watch the rest of the show, and I recommend you watch all of these episodes and continue watching.